In the last video, we got our Create Stream button to appear on the screen. Now, I want to go back over to that form right now, and I want to point out some really interesting behavior about how our application currently works. So I'm going to go over to the Create form. I'm going to make sure that I'm signed into the application. I'm also going to make sure that I have my Network Request tab open and that I'm sorting by XHR requests. I then want to try to create a new stream, and when I do so, you're going to see some interesting behavior. So I'm going to enter in a title here that says unexpected behavior, and I will give it a description of something like didn't expect that. And then I'm going to click on the submit button. Now when I do so, you'll notice that we get the request right here. I see the post request, and without a doubt, the request was successful. We created a new stream through our API. So what is the unexpected behavior here? Well, the unexpected behavior is the fact that the user got no notification. There's nothing on the screen that says that the stream was successfully created. So ideally, I think that we would probably automatically navigate our user back over to our list of streams after we have successfully created the stream. So in other words, after we successfully make our request, we should then navigate the user back over to our list of streams. Now we've kind of already taken a look at navigation, but we've been doing a very specific type of navigation. So throughout this course so far, in the last couple of videos, as we have been talking about React Router DOM, we've been seeing examples of intentional navigation. Intentional navigation is whenever a user clicks on a link component. That is when a user is trying to go from page A over to page B. But in this case, we're going to do a different type of navigation. This is referred to as programmatic navigation. It's when you and I run some code in response to some type of event. And that code has the intent of changing the page that the user is looking at. So we essentially want to make sure that the user forcibly gets navigated back to localhost 3000 after they create a stream. Now, doing this programmatic navigation is not the worst thing in the world, but before we get too deep into programmatic navigation, I want to think a little bit about when exactly we want to navigate the user around. In other words, exactly what instant in time do we want to try to get the user to go back over to localhost 3000, away from this form? There's actually some interesting considerations around this. So let's look at a quick diagram or two. Okay, so here's a possible scenario in which we might handle programmatic navigation in a not so good manner. So this is a timeline diagram, so we start up at the very top up here. So we'll say that a user submits our form. We then make a request to our backend API to create the stream, and then the instant after that, we might attempt to navigate the user to our list of streams. Now, this is not a good approach. So what I'm showing you right here, bad approach, you do not want to do this. The issue here is that if we navigate the user back over to our list of streams immediately after we make that request, I'm talking about like the next line of code, then if some time passed and we eventually got an error back from our API, the stream might not get created, but the user has already navigated away from the form, and they don't really have a ability or the opportunity to update the form and try to recreate the stream. So essentially, we don't want to navigate the user away too early. We only want to attempt to navigate the user away after we get an API response, be it an error or a success message. So essentially, we want to make sure that our user submits the form, we want to make a request to the backend API, and then when we eventually get our response from the API, only at that point in time are we going to attempt to either navigate the user back to the list of streams, if the stream was created successfully, or we will show an error message to the user telling them why the creation failed. Now, at present, we are only going to be concerned with handling navigation. We're going to handle the error message stuff, or the case in which the API returns an error, later on inside this application. We will eventually handle errors, just not quite yet. It's going to be a separate discussion in its own little section so that you can easily refer back to it in the future. Okay, so that's pretty much it. We want to make sure that we only navigate the user after we get a success from our API. So essentially, we want to trigger navigation. I'm going to open up my actions index.js file. We only want to trigger navigation from our create stream action creator after we get a successful response back from our API. Now we can trigger navigation immediately before or after the dispatch right here. It doesn't really matter, but I think that maybe it might be a little bit more ideal to do the navigation after we dispatch our action. So right here, essentially, we want to do some programmatic navigation to get the user back to the root route. And remember, the root route shows the list of streams to the user. So that's the idea. Right here is where we want to do our programmatic navigation. Okay, so we now kind of understand the circumstances around all this. Let's take a quick pause right here. When we come back in the next video, we're going to learn a little bit more about exactly how we do this programmatic navigation.